It is Better Country 101.7 The Bull. Good to be hanging out with you here this morning, and good to be joined by a special guest, who Mother Nature tried to slow us down, tried to separate us, but he is going to be making a performance. He's a certified gold artist coming to Carthage this Saturday night at the Legacy Theater. 90s kids remember him well. Good stuff from my childhood, especially. Keith Anderson joining us here on 101.7 The Bull. Keith, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Just got off my mountain bike, still out here at the trailhead, and feeling great.
Well, like we said, we talked a little bit off the air here, but old Mother Nature tried to slow us down there in January with some ice. Your show had to get rescheduled, but we're excited to have you here in this neck of the woods here. Let's get into things here. As I ask this question a lot to artists, a good getting to know you kind of question. Where does the love of music, where did it come from for you to want to pursue it as a career? Was there a family member, a friend? Where did that love of music come from?
Oh, man, I grew up just always loving lyrics and songs. And I remember before even my brother took up guitar, I remember in elementary school sitting in front of my stereo at my desk and just imagining I was at the school assembly with, a talent show and had my tennis racket for a guitar and a hairbrush for a microphone and sitting there singing Eye to Eye with Sherry Kreischer. So I was always loving just the performance side of that and the lyrics, just always loved it. And then my brother started playing guitar when he was in middle school, and man, he just got obsessed with it and was really he was so good. And, I tried to have a conversation with him, and he was just so focused on the guitar. I never understood it until I started playing. But I remember just being mainly an athlete. I took up drums and was his drummer and sang harmonies for him and played drums in our church. He was a praise and worship leader and then did rock music on the weekends. And I remember the talent show. He's really quiet. I was more the outgoing, athlete, starting quarterback, and he was kind of more shy. And I remember his senior talent show, sitting in the stands all bruised up from football practice and football games and scabs everywhere, and they just barely even announced him. Like the DJs didn't really know him, and they're just like, "Hey, Brian Anderson's going to do a song," and it was like he started playing, and the whole place just went quiet. And I remember seeing the reaction of all the girls. I'm going, that might be a little less painful way to pick up girls right there.
There you go. There you go. Certainly true.
I was like, yeah. So we grew up when he played. My dad played bass, and we had a couple bands together. He still plays. Still a better guitar player than me, but he's also a physicist for NASA. So, and he taught me to play guitar, so I tell people it actually did take a rocket scientist to teach me to play guitar.
That's always a very interesting hearing folks' beginnings when it comes to music there. You were talking about how you were pretty athletic. Matter of fact, you were really athletic even through your college days there down at Oklahoma State. Major League Baseball team even approached you at one time. You almost, had some conversations about going and playing baseball. What happened that kind of got in the way of your baseball career?
I had a shoulder surgery. I tore a rotator cuff. I played through it. I tore it when I was a junior in high school and then played through it and just kept kind of masking it with just anti-inflammatory shots and all that, and eventually had surgery once I got to Oklahoma State, but just never came back. And it was such an amazing program there. By the time I got back, Jeremy Burnett, who was, two-time All-American and then five-time Major League All-Star, he'd showed up and I no longer had a position. So it was just the things like that changed so quickly. So I went from one improbable, almost impossible dream to another one and started doing music.
Yeah, certainly. And like we said, it turned out to be a good career. We're talking with Keith Anderson here on 101.7 The Bull. Your early days of songwriting, I think it was even before you even had a record deal, you helped write a song that eventually got recorded by Garth Brooks and the great George Jones, Beer Run. What was that experience like, having a song that ended up getting recorded by two of the greatest to ever do it in the world of country music?
It changed everything for me. At that point, I was just working hard, writing every day, trying to write with who I could, and was starting to write with better and better writers and be discovered more from just playing at songwriter shows. And you write with one writer, and then he kind of recommends you to another one or bring you in. So it's really kind of getting to the point where I knew I was going to get a writing deal at some point, and I just met with a bunch of the publishers about a month before all this happened, and they were like, "You're getting closer. You're getting closer. You're just not quite there yet." And I knew I was, but you know, they're just so stingy, and they've got to be right. So eventually, that all came together. I wrote with a guy named Kim Williams and then George Dukas, who had some hits back in the '90s, "Lipstick Promises" and "Teardrops on My Pillow," and so we wrote that, and then got the call that Garth Brooks was going to cut it, and then not just him, but George Jones was going to do that. And I mean, overnight, all those publishers were calling, going, "Hey, we really like your stuff now. Why don't you come sign with us?" And it just changed everything for me, from going from just living in a 3-bedroom apartment with 5 guys and bunk beds, sleeping on couches, and a typical Nashville story, to just really overnight had a really great publishing deal. Because of that, not having a deal when that happened, I was able to negotiate a better percentage on all my publishing, and that just everything changed for me. And then less than 2 years later, I got my first record deal.
Yeah, and then you were like we said, you took off after that. You got that record deal. Your big hit, "Pickin' Wildflowers," took the country world by storm. I remember it very well while I was going to school, and got your first top 10. Did you have a sense when you were putting that song together that that might take off, or did everything just come kind of as a surprise for you?
No, we felt good about that one. It was the thing that surprised me was that we wrote that song, me and John Rich from Big and Rich, and Kim Williams, who I wrote with a lot. I wrote "Beer Run" with him also, and we were writing it just because at that time there was just such it just seemed like country music had just become so fluffy and politically correct, and just kind of lost its balls, to be honest. And we were like, let's just write something, a Conway Twitty. You knew what he was saying when he was like, "Hello, darling," And there's so many good songs. So we just kind of tongue-in-cheek wrote this song that sounded like one thing, but was obviously about something else. And, it was so fun writing it. And you just don't realize when you're almost afraid radio won't play it at that time because it's a little too risque. And, but man, the more we played it out live, it just gained traction. And then when we got the record deal, man, they were just flipping over that song. And I thought we'd put it out maybe second or third. But that was the first one, and everything changed,
We're talking with Keith Anderson here on 101.7 The Bull, and something I'm always curious about when I talk with artists. Was there a moment where you had a realization, a "holy cow, I've made it" kind of thing? For a lot of people, it's hearing their song on the radio when you're not expecting it. Was there an "I made it" moment for you when you were starting to take off?
Yeah, probably. There's a couple. There was probably the first thing that really hit me because I was really involved in the making of the record and showing up for the mixes, and really I just heard "Pickin' Wildflowers" so many times in the studio over and over and over, and would get a mix and then bring it back and listen to it in my car, listen to it in my home stereo, listen to it. Because every song sounds different in whatever sound system you're listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just listening for little things you want to, change or bring up this instrument, bring down this instrument. And so I'd heard it so many times. The first time I heard it on the radio, I didn't even realize it. My radio rep and the guys in the band noticed it before me because I just heard it so many times playing that it just was second nature to hear it, and didn't realize it was actually the radio playing it. So that freaked me out. That was awesome. But probably the first time it really felt like, cause, a lot of people get to hear their song on the radio, and then, the success just doesn't come. For me, probably the first time I realized things were going to be different was at a show. The first time I remember this happening was a show in Kansas City called the Beaumont Club that's no longer open, but it was just a great country venue. And it was just packed. And I remember we got to that song, and it was the first time I heard the crowd singing it louder than I could hear it through my sound system, the monitors.
Wow.
Coming back at me. And it was just like that moment where you're going, "Holy cow, man, this song is really big right now." And just hearing that, the crowd sing it louder, I just stopped for the first time and held out the mic, and it was it's pretty crazy. That was awesome.
We're talking with Keith Anderson here on 101.7 The Bull. A couple more questions for you here, Keith, before we let you go. You know, I was doing some looking at your website here, and there's a little career factoids part to your website. And one of those factoids was the fact that you took place in a primetime special where you got to go on a date with Paula Abdul, with Dr. Phil's the reason put it all together for you. What was that experience like? And have you ever heard from Paula in the days or, you know, years after that? Or do you even hear from Dr. Phil much these days?
Yeah, Dr. Phil, his son Jay and I are good buddies. Been through a lot of stuff together. And so we've been hanging out a bunch. I met him at one of the first award shows I was at. He's big. They're just a big country music family. They love it. Jay's brother is he's doing great in the old rock world right now also. But anyway, they I was one of the top new artists of 2005, and so at the CRS, the Country Radio Seminar in Nashville, they have a showcase for the top artists. And you usually do some kind of funny intro video before you play. And so ours, we went to because I knew Jay, we pitched the idea, and because I'd just been in People Magazine's Bachelor issue and some other stuff. So we did a real funny parody of the Dr. Phil show where he's basically just making fun of me and saying, you were in People Magazine, that kind of thing. And we just hit it off. I mean, Jay and I already knew each other, but it was just a lot of chemistry, and we filmed it in front of his live studio audience. He films 3 shows a day, so we filmed it between, you know, his filming the shows, so we had the audience. It was pretty funny. So we really hit it off and had just kind of a comical humor there, and we left and was going to do our show, and I got a call from Jay saying, hey, Dad's got the special coming up, and he's got all the Bachelors booked, but he said, man, you guys just hit it off so well, and he didn't even think to have somebody from music in this show because it's Paula Abdul, and he's trying. At that time, she was having all these issues dating guys, and all this bad reputation, losing men. So it's like she's going to go on 3 dates at the same time at this real fancy. It's like a Dave and Buster's, but like really fancy. And so one guy was bowling, I was having dinner with her, and I can't remember what she was doing with the other guy. But so I mean, between dates, she'd go into the mission control room, and he would kind of tell her what she did right and what she did wrong. So it was pretty funny. At that time, I was already dating somebody, so I told Jay, I was like, man, I'm dating her, but so I can't win, but it could be great publicity. And he's like, yeah, you won't win. We want you on there. So it was fun. She was charming. I was like a little schoolboy because when she first broke out, I was in high school and just had the biggest crush on her. So it was pretty awesome. You can pretty much tell through the footage of that I was just like gleaming. So we filmed it, and we were gone before they finished filming because we had a show. I got to fly on Dr. Phil's private jet back to Arizona to make my show. It was pretty awesome. Felt like a rock star on that one. So I haven't talked to her since, but she did give Jay she gave her number to Jay to give to me. So, but I never called her.
Like you said, you were seeing somebody there too at the time, so that would probably, still a pretty fun experience. By the way, it is on YouTube. I watched it earlier this morning, so it's out there somewhere if you look hard enough. We're talking with Keith Anderson here on 101.7 The Bull. He's going to be at the Legacy Theater coming up on Saturday night after Mother Nature tried to stop his show there in January. We are all systems go here. Might be a little wet come up Saturday, but hey, we're looking forward to your show. What can folks expect from you coming up Saturday night?
It'll be fun. These theater shows are especially fun for me because they're a little more, intimate. It's not like the big club party thing. We still do all the rock and the party songs and hope everybody will engage and sing along and stand up and dance. But it also gives me a chance because I got such a big background in songwriting. I love doing songwriting shows and just kind of telling the stories. One of my favorite things when I moved to Nashville was going to the Bluebird and different venues where the songwriters they'd play a song you'd heard a million times on the radio, and generally they'd written it for another artist. So you get to hear their interpretation of it. But the cool thing is hearing the story behind a song and how it was kind of inspired and why it was written, how it was written. And so I get to, in those theater settings, I get to tell a few more of the stories and go into the detail on some of the hits that I've written. and kind of get into that also. So it's a fun night.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Coming up Saturday, the Legacy Theater. Check out their website if you want tickets. Still got the chance to go see Keith Anderson. He will be there this Saturday. Keith, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much for chatting with us here this morning and making time to get back here to West Central Illinois. We can't wait for your show here Saturday night. Thanks a lot.
I'm excited. Can't wait to see everybody. Get your tickets now, and we'll rock it on Saturday. Come on.